What's up, guys? Coach Az from Warrior Martial Arts here again with another episode of Ask Questions with Coach. And today's question comes to us from Instagram. Are you putting your long-term fitness goals on hold because of lockdown and COVID, or are you more determined than ever? And this comes from an ex-student who used to train with me and has since then got into rock climbing. And I kind of really understand where he's coming from, particularly with this question, because he is also in a sport that has really had to, if you wanted to continue for everything that's been going on in the world, you've really had to adapt. You've had to find ways because these gyms are closed, these facilities are closed, traveling to locations where you could do this outdoors is not permitted. And of course for us, our gyms are closed, our halls are closed, we're not really meant to be making any contact with anyone. So it's understandable that a lot of people would just put things on hold. They'd say, well, I can't compete this year, or it's very difficult, or it's almost impossible for me to go to training this year. So I'll just focus on other things and all of this will go on hold. What I will say is that my personal fitness goals and my approach in terms of teaching other people and promoting what we do as a sport, it has not stopped, but it has adapted. So the goals that I set for myself prior to everything that happened in the world were to get all my fighters to more tournaments, was for us to win more medals. For me, I was playing with the idea of competing again and fighting again. Now, to say that I'm going to just stick with all those goals this year, as in for this year, is obviously unrealistic. There are no tournaments. There is no events. That's not going to happen. So once we came to terms with what was happening, there had to be an adaptation. And anyone who's watching this and the most that you're doing is you're watching YouTube videos on martial arts because you don't feel like you can take part in it, or any sport that you like to do, my recommendation would be that you must adapt. And this is something that martial arts and fighting teaches us, is you need to adapt to your opponent. If your opponent suddenly shows you a new technique or they start throwing something that you're not used to, it's how you adapt in the moment that's going to determine the result of that fight. And it's exactly the same. My club is called Warrior Martial Arts. It's not the most creative name in the world. I guarantee there's a million others. But I take that word to heart in the sense that I don't think we should call ourselves warriors if at the first sign of a battle or trouble, we kind of throw down our swords and run and leave it there. So we've constantly throughout this whole thing tried to adapt. And what that adaptation has looked like for the majority of people is going online, training via Zoom, and effectively punching thin air. Now I know it's not the same. It's not as good. It's not as fun. And I'm the first person to say it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's basically exactly the same. It's not. But it's adaptation. And really what it is for me, because let's say, and I don't necessarily believe this, but let's say that you're of the belief that you cannot improve at this by punching thin air and learning via Zoom. Let's say that that is true. I think you'd be hard pressed to convince me that you can't, to some extent, maintain where you are at. And this is really important because, especially with martial arts, if you're not maintaining at the very least, you are losing. If you're not maintaining your flexibility, you're going to lose your flexibility. If you're not maintaining your strength, you're going to lose your strength. And the same goes for your sharpness, for your technique, for your understanding. All of these things, if you don't use it, you lose it. So although we're training in a very compromised way and the goals have had to be adjusted, I think it's important that you keep up with it and you find a way to do it. Because although I can say I don't think I've got better as a martial artist this year, at least not by any significant margin, and that gets difficult. Obviously, the longer you train, the improvements become very minor over time. But I can say that I've maintained my fitness, that I've still got my flexibility, and that I'm not going to be shaking off a whole year's worth of rust when we eventually get back to real training. Now, certain things are going to need some time. Things like timing and distance management, because I've not had an opponent or anyone moving, reaction times. But again, you're creating a far worse uphill battle if you are going to add to that you can't lift your leg above your waist, or you can't go more than 2 rounds before you're exhausted, or you can't do more than 5 press-ups. So in answer of the question, Michael, and I apologize, it's a bit more drawn out than maybe you would have wanted it to be. And I've seen you on Instagram, so speaking specifically to you for a second, I know you've done the same. I think fitness goals have needed to be adapted and adjusted this year for the climate. We don't necessarily need to be making giant gains or huge improvements, but I think we would be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't try, at least to some extent, to maintain where we are at. At the end of the day, you need to be passionate about it, and if you're passionate about it, you're going to find a way regardless of the circumstances. So I hope that helps, guys. If you'd like to ask me a question, please drop it down in the comments below, or slide into the Warrior Martial Arts DMs on Instagram. Links are in the description box below, and I will see you on the next one.